Now, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear participants of the 4th International Scientific Forum, Step into the Future, Artificial Intelligence and Digital Economy, the Technological Leadership, the Looking Beyond the Horizon. For the second plenary session about the technological leadership in the ecosystem of the future, we are inviting the moderator, journalist, and of the leading informational releases on TV channel Russia, and the advisor of the Academy named after Plekhanov, Roman Polyusov. Thanks a lot for this presentation. Now, dear colleagues, in our first half, so you have set up a very good pace of the discussion. We're going to continue with this pace, and we're going to discuss the strategies of technological leadership. And we decided to combine the digital economy and the image of the future. And so this image of the future is going to be drawn by us and by Professor Mr. Borisov. So with a round of applause, I'd like to say, but we are in hard conditions, in conditions of the COVID, so we don't have many people in here, but we have a lot of viewers online. Mr. Borisov, he's an academy expert and the expert of the Fundamental Research Foundation. Nikolai Komlev, who is Executive Director of the Association for Computer and Information Technologies. He's a chairman of the Council for the Development of the Digital Economy of the Trade and Industry Chamber. Well, we don't have many people in here, but let us applaud in any case. So, next is I'd like to invite Svetlana Zdobnikova, who is a senior scientist of the Medical Scientific Center of the university named after Lomonosov. So, Svetlana, please get on the stage. Mr. Lotanov, Doctor of Biological Sciences, he is head of the chair of neurology at the university named after Lomonosov, and Boris Kobrinsky, chairman of the advisor for artificial intelligence, professor, head of the division for systems for support of decision making in the sphere of artificial intelligence of the Federal Research Center of Informatics and Management of the Russian Academy of Science, professor of the medical university named after Pirogov. So once again, welcome to this stage. So we have a very highly represented presidium. So I hope that the discussion is also going to be interesting. So I'm proposing the following format. If each one of you has got something to tell us, I'm proposing you to ask each other questions. If there's something interesting to say, if something seems controversial, do it, please. I will also do that, and we will try to do it. We'll try doing it in the atmosphere of friendship and around people who are, ardent and who are burning with this information technologies. Who are going to speak information technologies and in digital economy, how to ensure our digital leadership, how to provide a good environment for small and medium businesses. What could be the scientific and international cooperation? How can we improve the investment climate? So the most important task is to resolve to improve the competitiveness of the Russian economy, because in any case we start speaking about the successes of economy, because success of economy means success of people. It means better life of people, simpler, more dynamic. And how can we do that using these high technologies? And in the first place, I would like to provide a floor to Vladimir Vladimirovich. You are highly in depth with this technology, so we're speaking about the strategy of technological development. Can you tell us about the major problems that exist on the way of this strategy and this technological leadership? You know that before speaking the strategy, I think it is worth it to speak about the problems that are we have in this set of problems, because this is a set of problems that demand a huge interest from all around, from all people around. Okay, so excuse me. So these young ladies are provided us with everything. And one of the problems that I would like to talk about is exactly this is in the name of this presentation. I'd also like to speak about other important issues, such as the problem of just thrusting the subjective artificial intelligence. Next is we could, for example, see the artificial intelligence as a research area, and second is just a comparison of the strong and weak in artificial intelligence, and the next is the problem is the technological rebirth of artificial intelligence. So above all, very often artificial intelligence is forced onto us as if it is something subjective. So it means that their capabilities are probably better than the human capabilities, but they are interpreted as intellectual superiority. And here we have some stereotypes that are unrevealed, that are usually shown in various fantastic fiction films, etc. But I think that the subjectivity is one of the vulnerability when just artificial intelligence is given subjectivity. So some scientists even believe that they are subjective, that they have their own subject ego. But this is not true, because very often this results in the problem with the scientific approach to the artificial intelligence. And the problems of artificial intelligence is not absolutely something new. In our country, it has been developing for the past 30 years, and there are very good results both in fundamental and applied type of research. I believe, and this is also an opinion of the specialists of the association that I represent, that is to say the Russian Association of Artificial Intelligence, the most productive is to consider artificial intelligence not only from its subjectiveness, but also as a sphere of research, which includes its own terminology and methodology. But until now, in spite of that, the research in this sphere were intensively conducted, especially in recent times. There is not enough the level of the systematization of the generalization of both the terminology and the methodology. So there is not enough developed commonly accepted theory or methodology of artificial intelligence, in spite of significant results that were achieved in this sphere, including those coming from the work of 50 years ago, of the works of McCartney and our scientists. And the reason is because of the instability. It always needs upgrading and updating. In Babylon's building of a tower, it means a lot of people are just getting together around this tower until it destroys. It also, covered with all types of different spheres, starting with neurophysical and neurolinguistic and all types of researches. So there is a whole crowd of scientists that are around this artificial intelligence, and this is the direction of artificial intelligence. If we don't speak about its subjectiveness, in my opinion, they're all mostly about the creation of a system of knowledge which are necessary to resolve intellectual assignments using computer technologies, and also it's a creation of the tools for the generation of new knowledge, for the resolution of intellectual assignments or tasks or problems. And the problem in here, from the point of view of fundamental research, is that the research of the so-called strong artificial intelligence is still lagging behind. Why? Because these problems are interdisciplinary and should be comprehensive. It means that the specialists should have some synthetic knowledge in various areas. And until now, we have not yet identified what is going to be the terminology, including its erosion of the terminology and maybe some very fast temporal changes. And the term intelligence, when we speak about natural intelligence, it should be just clarified what its mechanisms, what its functions, such as, for example, it could be intuition, discussion, setting targets, etc. If you're interested in these topics, so I'm referring you to the leading specialists, Mr. Yefimov, and and Zabizhayev, another specialist. You can find their works in the internet, and there are sites and with the materials that are called, Devil's Dozen. So just look for the information online. So when we speak about the artificial intelligence, it means that we have to develop the scientific foundation. Is it the first problem that you're discussing about? Yeah, we need to identify what's going to be the terminology. Then we're not going to have any problems. And I'd like to, when you define artificial intelligence, maybe I'd like to advise you to avoid this phrase, artificial intelligence. We should speak not about artificial intelligence, but the technology. It's some kind of technology, it's not intelligence. So it means that we need to use one single language so that everybody understands each other, right? Absolutely. I would forbid, you just immediately want to forbid things. Nonetheless, this should be forbidden to use artificial intelligence as a terminology. And there is a very good question that you asked. That you raised. One of the factors that defines the problems of one's unified understanding of these terms, in my opinion, and not only my opinion, is that the phrase is not very good, artificial intelligence. It's not, does not describe what it is, because people think that this is intelligent mind, but in this sense, they're betting not on the subjectiveness, but on intellectual or intelligent technologies, what it's dedicated to. What is intelligent, what is intellectual, you can see these characteristics on the slide. It means that there should be some natural linguistic component, natural linguistic capabilities, various capability to see what factors are not sufficient. It should be adapting to various, depending on various external factors. Capability to execute certain tasks, human tasks, etc. So if we look at this combination of words, then you do not fit into this definition. And because so there is an erosion of the meanings. So what we see is that there is a post-intelligence, and as a result, we have all types of new types of artificial intelligence, such as distributed, explainable artificial intelligence, etc., etc. So these are actual properties of the artificial intelligence that enable us to include various methods depending on these different features or characteristics. I'd like to say the following thing. Although in the name I made these two types of artificial intelligence on the opposite sides, but actually the trends that we see in artificial intelligence, they're targeted at the movement. So above all, this is the foundation of the high-quality development of artificial intelligence. These are the new opportunities provided by computers. So but in the context of interaction of artificial intelligence and digitalization in this infrastructure, this is where we have the synthetic analytical effect. Besides, in most cases, if you know this phenomenon, use of the models and methods of artificial intelligence have already been developed earlier, but they were hidden like a piano in the bushes. And currently what we actually see a rebirth, reactualization of these spheres. And there is also a re-engineering of methods and models into the basic and applied technologies. So just a couple of more minutes, I'd like to say that these basic technologies that was mentioned very briefly at the previous panel, but in any case, I believe, well, we believe, these are very important. This is the list of the technologies that are listed in here. Now, actually, the technology of machine learning or extraction of knowledge from various sources, recognition of the images, forecasting, cognitive cognitive technologies, multi-agent management, multimodal analytics, machine and human interaction. These technologies are included into several tasks, and this enables us to create applicable technologies for artificial intelligence that we're talking about on this slide. I'm not going to read that. On the other hand, this results in that the technological equipment This tooling, this is the effect that provides a synergy, so the synergic effect. And the results that we observe in fundamental applied research, what we see, just dual targets. And this enables us to see the following, that the futurism is very promising. So right now we see the results that seemingly are unapplicable, were not resolvable 5 years ago. So once again, dear colleagues.
So, colleagues, there are two aspects. We have inner problems pertaining to AI. We need to tackle them. And point two, there is no profit in the motherland. And once we're talking about our today's subject, we say that these technological leadership problems, they need to be revised in online mode. And that's why let's have forums not every year, but more frequently. Look, I represent the Computer and Information Technology Association. We're responsible for the IT professions and information security professions. Recently, Ministry of Labor and other agencies, they say, when do we get the standards in the AI profession? I wanted to address this question to you because so far we say we have programmers, and the programmers can be used for the recognition technologies. The linguists can be also engaged. Is it the right time for specific profession, qualification, and everything to be standardized? This is a very drastic problem. And as a part of this association, we need to develop it further. As far as I know, and there was a grant won from the Ministry of Science to develop universal competencies in the area of master's degree and bachelor's degree students training. And looking at the way the system integrators are tackling this task, it's very difficult to see how it works, but we need to have one single language, one single opinion, because there are so many different opinions. Here we either act in the same way as Konstantin Anokin is trying to get rid out of some complexity and simplifying the task, that in order to make synthesis, first you need to disintegrate. Because you can disintegrate by roles, by specific tasks. And if we don't do it, and this attempt to build the one single field theory, I don't want to use harsh language. Still, we need to specialize. We need to be narrow in our specialization. We need to engage experts. What is happening now? Mostly, we need to use the capacity which is already accumulated in our community. And on the science and scientific foundation, only jointly, by joint efforts, we can reach the technological future. And you answer your question in a positive way, right? Positively. No. Yes, I say yes to your question, that it needs to be done together by the public, by the business, by academia. But so far, I cannot answer whether it's the right time to have a special profession, special vocation, AI specialist. So far, we don't have AI specialist profession. Many people telling and they cite examples, and we don't have people who are really capable and ready to get engaged in it and describe what are the competencies, what is the scope of knowledge. And if some of you are ready, we will help to put together such job descriptions. So they will, you mean to bring a systemic approach, formalize it. But so far, everything is just limited to conversations, talks, and talks. No more than that. So you gave me the floor, so please launch my presentation. Look, in this case, I represent IT association that merges Russian and international companies and other associations. Our association is called Association of Computer and Information Technology, APKI. This is the abbreviation. And I represent the Chamber of Trade and Commerce, the Digitalization Council, and today I would like to speak about what is close to our home. If we're building the future, our theme today, our conference name is Stepping into the Future, and this step, we can be talking about technologies, we can be inspired by Elon Musk, we can admire him, but to promote it with us, we need to administer this process at the state level, at the public authorities level, and it can be done only by joint efforts. And the foundation of digital economy and its technological aspect is information technology. This is IT industry, IT business, and the fresh figures. Maksud Shadaev, the Minister of Digital Development, Communication and Mass Media, yesterday, day before yesterday, at the meeting held by the President of the Russian Federation, gave these figures. Over 9 months of this year, additional tax amounts from IT accounted for 48 billion rubles. By 38%, the sales of software and services got increased, and we increased by 18% the amount of exported goods and services. And these are the consequences of the tax maneuver. These are the benefits and preferences that were introduced and approved 1 year ago, and they took effect from the 1st of January this year. This is the example of joint work, regulatory authorities, public and business, working together. This is the outcome. And association of Rosoft association got engaged. These are the members of our association. And look, what significant effect did we get? And the incremental amounts, it's great. It's positive for the entire country, and for the IT sector, it's important because it gave impetus to development of technologies here in Russia. What else got impacted the IT market in 2021? Just like in other countries, localization or the soft development attempt to upgrade and recover Russian electronics, the attempt to recover it, because we have lots of efforts, but it's really difficult to bring it back and solve this problem. Change in a behavioral model. Behavior got changed. I shall not say that COVID and pandemic really impacted. This is just the impetus. The most important thing is that the world is moving to work from home model, and this is a great leveler, and we can engage personnel from the regions. If previously we hired Muscovites and people from the big cities, but now we can hire from other countries, and this geographic component disappeared. There are many consequences. And one of the most achievements of pandemic is that we can get together today and we can have meetings and we don't need to travel. And this is a great achievement. Believe me, as an industry, we proposed to do it in this way 20 years ago. And eliminate the paper-based document management systems. But you know, the people are conservative creatures, and we are so conservative, and the regulators in the State Duma, in the government, and just regular folks are so conservative. And COVID helped us, yes. COVID, in a way, helped us to move further, but we have a lot of other consequences. And when the education started to move to work from home, when our professors and lecturers are working from home, they have understanding that there are different problems that emerge. And today, we will not talk about education, but the platforms, ecosystems are on the rise. And in the state platforms, we are discussing how to regulate it. As a business, we say, let us regulate ourselves. We don't need the engagement of the public. But now we have a great discussion. One more thing. So still they will be watching. Yes, they will never leave you without. IT is the body that Mishustin, he is from the taxation service, and he is from the finance, and he used to control finance. Now he applies it to all the spheres, and we have a greater surveillance over our population. And we are frightened by what is happening in China. When I'm going through my apartment from my place to the bakery, and there are 10 cameras that recognize my face, and they know where I'm heading to, I'm really frightened for the IT business. And these are the new markets on one hand, but this is frightening on the other hand. Once we see such an effect from the tax maneuver, together with the government, we started, together with Mr. Chernyshenko, we started to prepare the second support package. And the first is tax maneuver, and we are preparing the second package. And this fall, the roadmap was approved by the government. This is our second package name to make it more favorable for the IT development. This is enormously big package, and 62 events, 20 of them are of systemic nature, 42 events are meant to further development of specific technologies, including medical services, software for offices, and AI. And there are so many things as a part of the second package. These are just the instructions from the government, and to each one of them we will have additional package on the AI. We have a lot of activities devoted to, and there are two types of measures. One measures are meant to accelerate the import substitution, electronics and software subsidies. And last week, the Ministry of Finance issued two versions. Version 1 was support of PAC, and then and another version was issued after 3 days. We also worked in non-fiscal measures, which is increasing attractiveness of the Russian jurisdiction, increasing security, and I don't want to be talking about criminal prosecution, but every month, every 2 weeks, I put myself into the criminal prosecution of some of the IT companies. Yes, this is the fact. This is another important aspect. And we will not build AI if we don't have the ones to whom we are working for. Look, some of our proposals, and everyone listening to us on internet, get engaged. We propose proposed to establish the IT Ombudsman Institute. We need to have an IT ombudsman, and this is a part of our plan. It is signed by Ms. Shusin, and the government is asking, you proposed it, give us the candidates, give us the names, colleagues. If you know someone, such people who are qualified to take this job and how to build this institute. And you will see my contact details. Maybe you are the one who will do it. You are the ready-made IT ombudsman. But I believe we need to have more professional, more worthy specialists, building a working group, establishing the working group on interaction between the government and business representatives, IT industry. This working group is under construction, and one of the tasks is establishing the independent and competent expertise examination. Maybe it's a long name. Let me explain in a simple language why this is so important for the AI community. Someone needs to evaluate what is done, and any implemented project, there is an expert who comes, the money is spent, there is no money left. We spent 1 billion, but only 100,000 was used for the technology, or someone is offering the technology, and it's good that Ministry of Industry and Trade engages us as experts, but the judicial authorities need to rely on qualified experts that are trustworthy, both for judicial authorities as well as for the business. And we are trying to build a model of the expert community. If you have ideas, come to us, and we will build this expert community together. And one more point, creating conditions to attract and relocate, bringing back IT specialists and companies. There is a brain flight, and we need to create favorable conditions so they come back to Russia. And the experience of building the second package have shown that today's composition of the government, Ministry of the Digital Development and Ministry of Industry and Trade, vice premiers and other agencies, now they've learned to work together with the business, with the industry. Sometimes it happens more effectively, sometimes less effectively. And speaking about the step into the future, on the future development, it's important to retain what we already have, not to lose this momentum. But once the government begins to create happiness despite the business interest, it will fail. And we will have a lot of risks on the way. And the military, geopolitical risks, well, let's not touch upon the politics. And there are risks that we expect to see in the business, the consequences of financial stimulus, and it will not go unnoticed. We will have inflation and other consequences, just like from the pandemic. And like logistic chain disruptions will impact the electronics and the testing of new economic models, services, sharing and platform transformational economics, crowd models, gamification. It seems to be far away, but it's already there. We are living in this environment. We are testing it, and it will change our economy a lot. And there is a competition between the public and ecosystem, and we can see it even in Russia, not just abroad. We are lagging behind. Our law legislation, ethics is lagging behind. It's a simple example for you. Pilot, a robot can kill a pedestrian, but in the law, this is not enshrined, this is not clarified yet. Without it, the technology is not going to work. We thought, oh, robots, this is far-fetched future, but they emerged faster, sooner than we expected. And the legal area is not catching up with it, and this is our common task. And to conclude with, I can say the risks is something that makes our life bright, interesting, fascinating, and by joint efforts, we will make our future comfortable and ambitious. We shall not be afraid of AI. We just need to jointly make it such that we would like to see it. My contact details. Thanks for your attention, Nikolai and myself. Before you have a question, right? No. Sorry, I wanted to speak later. And there is I'm a representative of medicine. I'm a medical professional. I'm a surgeon, and I came to this forum. You will have to tolerate our questions from the medical sector. The medicine and public health overall is a rather specific sector. It's a very specific sector, and quite often we are intervening with IT. Just let me give you a simple example. I have children, and my children are also medical professionals, and my daughter is the fourth year student of medical university, and they study surgery online. Will the patient be willing to come to these surgeons who studied online? This is not a question. So you can have a better idea. I can answer your question. Couple more comments, and it's not only surgery is taught online, and also there is a system that was put together before the COVID, like a state exam, a unified state exam, that are testing doctors, medical professionals. Once you put together the community that discusses digitalization and education of specific sectors, such specific sectors as medicine, you need to engage consultants from these sectors, from the medicine in our case, because point one, and the therapeutical medical professional need to have physical and psycho-emotional contact with the patient. This is an integral component of our activity. Doctors need to physically and mentally contact with their patients in order to frame diagnosis and therapy. And in surgery specifically, we use such parts of our consciousness. Maybe it's surprising to hear from you, not just experience and brain and AI that is implemented in medicine broadly. We also engage insights, inspiration, intuition. That intuition in surgeons plays a very important role, and it is developing as we grow as professional surgeons. We don't know the definitions. We don't know the definition for consciousness. And still, I want to see what is your perspective on it. And while we frame this digital space, while we step into the future, and we are also moving into the future, please consider the points that I just highlighted to you. And if you allow me, and
if you allow me, just as for the surgeon who does not have any practice, he has to work with their hands offline or online, doesn't matter, but you have to do it with your hands. And it's now, just when I was writing this scientific work, and when I was defending it in 2001 or 2002, so there was also a neural network that I was using.
Я в своей поликлинике терапевту говорю: слушайте, а вы уже там подбираете что-то, учите компьютер, зачем?
And
Я говорю, понимаете,
look, my point is that many things, many vacations and special areas will be replaced by computer. Computer will make more accurate diagnosis. You sent me to take a blood test,
У вас в голове
and in your hand, in your head, in your brain,
там 5000
you have 5,000 patients, 10,000 patients, but computer had billions of patients, and he will diagnose it more accurately.
с хирургией
And with surgery,
сейчас, когда
now,
оперируют люди,
when
невозможно представить
surgeons do
практика
it,
работы руками.
so it cannot be, we cannot do without practical hands-on skills. And our neural network will not be formed without hands-on experience. But after 10, 20 years, I'm not a futurist, but it will be prohibited to human surgeons to do surgery because it will be done by robots, and they are more accurate, more precise. And now I agree this is wrong, but this is a transitory period. Let us take it as a transitory period, and during the transitory period it's always difficult, and you set the problems right, and we need to tackle it all together. And
Я тоже могу сказать, что
I
мы
can say that we are colleagues, but from different sectors, but we are true colleagues. We are here to listen to each other, to get to know what we think. And there is an ARMIT association, and there is an IT specialized in medicine. They argue a lot, and they blame the management of Ministry of Public Health. This is a transitory process. This is a transition period. Yes, we need to work together. Yes, the Ministry of Public Health, they do not sufficiently cooperate with us. And I believe all these problems that you mentioned, they need to be discussed. We shall not keep it to ourselves. We need to build working groups and discuss it there. My point is that I'm fully for IT in any area. I can take responsibility for. I was listening to Svetlana, and it's terrifying to come to a surgeon who never did surgery himself. And one more important thing, intuition. Yes, machine will never have intuition because the machines, they have algorithms. Intuition. This is, again, this is about the neural network, the conclusion based on data. Machine will always be more precise than humans. And you know, this is a subjective story. And this is your personal perspective about intuition. The medical professionals, they have another perspective on intuition. And let me continue my comments to respond to your... Yeah, this is a battle, but it's a friendly battle. I think that in several years, when we will have such robots who are capable of making brain surgery and in terms of microns better than humans, I hope that our public health system on planet Earth will be at such a level that the surgery will not be required, because the peak of development is not to do surgery, but to ensure that this never happens and to prevent it and then reverse it. And then it will be described by our posterior generations that it was an epoch when people, surgeons, were cutting off organs. But to make this future coming sooner to us, the algorithms and standards that we can build in the artificial intelligence will not help us to move further, to improve our consciousness, to better manipulate with our health and get rid out of disease. We need to develop ourselves, but the standards will not help. Development. This is a breakthrough. Once you say, oh, Erica, I have such and such insight, it can be done differently. We shall not baseline on the standards. Standards is yesterday, it's history. We need to look into the future, and it will be for the robot sitting in the clinic. Yes, it needs to be in a combination. It needs to be interaction of humans and AI. It shall always be a joint work of the public, business, and science. AI without human intelligence, without brain, will not work. Someone need to maintain, someone need to invent it and implement. So moving into the next panel, digital technology and national economy, the image of the future. Svetlana, and will you come up front? I will speak from my place. Together, but not instead. In Russian, these two words sound very similar. Let me comment on your statement, together, but not instead of. And we will wait for the moment when the body is by 100% healthy. It will be replaced by titanium, by plastic organs. Some of our organs are already made of plastic and titanium. And this is the Tsiolkovsky idea. The body is the weakest part, and intelligence, the body is the weakest part of human. So we have a real discussion. Let us give a hand to our speakers, because this is a true discussion. Svetlana, thank you very much. It's not over. The discussion is not over yet. I'm a doctor. I am a brain specialist. Apart from the body, we also have consciousness. And period, not a comma. And so we can continue our discussion going forward, but now I would like, upon the request of the organizers, to make my 10 minutes presentation. And I'm really thankful to the organizers for giving such a deal of attention to us. The clinical physiologists, neurophysiologists, AI specialists are inviting us to the forum so we can make you aware of what we've been doing. We are also intensely using AI in, for example, I'm a surgeon who makes retina surgeries, and we have a hardware complex, Da Vinci robot, probably all of you are aware. And my desk, my working place of the neurosurgeons, in terms of technology development, I think it is not superior than the space control center. And our flights are in a microspace because the eye, human eye, is a very interesting entity. My presentation is eye as an interface. Eye is an input interface, but not everyone is aware that is it just the input interface. To begin with, I would like to say that the key role in the eye is played by retina. Retina is a very complex tissue that is compared with the digital camera matrix. Without retina, vision is not possible. The other structures of our eye are lenses that refract the media, and they deliver signal to the retina. And this is how it looks like when we take a look at it. This is the macula. This is the maximum vision area. This is the way we perceive it since Helmholtz time, who invented microscope in 1861. The most wonderful feature here is that the nerve, the eye nerve, this nerve, this is a bundle of neurons. that account for 40% of all neural filaments that present in all the cranial nerves. It's a little bit less than half of the nerves that innervate the entire body. And what we have in our body, this is the only 20% of all these neurons. They deliver the optic impulse, and what other neurons are transmitting, it's not really clear. And even now we know that starting from the end of 19th century, and this study emerged in 19th century. So eye impacts functioning of all the body systems and highest neural activity. For example, if we put a light on retina, it impacts hydrocarbon and psychic and brain development in human and in animals the more so. And it's not surprising that specific feature of the retina diseases and disorders that we treat is that usually it is associated with diabetes mellitus, with blood clogging diseases, and it requires interdisciplinary approach. And opposite, many diseases such as diseases, not just Alzheimer and Parkinson diseases, and also endocrine and vascular disorders might not result in deterioration of sight ability, but they cause structural and functional distortion in the retina that can be detected and treated by AI technology. And we rather clearly can diagnose it. In this way, if we study our sight ability, this is the ideal interdisciplinary approach. And so we can study, eye is transparent and easy to study, and ophthalmology is one of the most technologically advanced medical sectors, and AI technology is used from vitreoretinal surgery development, and I am engaged, and it was founded in 1971. And most of the retina studies or tests is non-invasive. We do it fast, and it's not painful for the patient, and with a high degree of visualization. And in ophthalmology, we have a unique opportunity to qualitatively test the functions of vegetative neural system through the apple of the eye reactions. But the specialists will understand me. Digital technology enable to assess not just at the qualitative, but at quantitative level the flow, blood flow, vessels, and optic nerves that correlate with all other functions. And they correlate with the processes happening in the brain, not just anatomic, but the functional functions. In ophthalmology, we have multiple functional tests that can assess the blood flow in the eye, neural activity, the needs of the retina disorders. We can find correlations with other processes that cannot be visually assessed, I mean the processes in the brain. So eye is a universal approach for the interdisciplinary approach in medicine and to assess efficiency of different disease treatment. And this specificity was realized not just by us, by ophthalmologists, but by AI specialists in Google company. For a long time, there is a deep mining group that implements AI in ophthalmology. This is a Google company, and this is a pilot model. And one of the heaviest and most frequent retina disorders, diabetic retinopathy, is something that happens in case of diabetes mellitus. This is the reason number one for blindness, and young blindness is from 20 to 60 years of age. This is the labor force age, and let me conclude by the problems that are at the verge of ophthalmology and neurology. Permanently, we discuss it with our physicians, at least in our medical center, Moscow State University Center. And the major problem is that in the medical science, we lost the systemic approach to problems overall. And it has all the objective prerequisites. There is no guilty party to it. This is due to technological development, because on the one hand, we have narrow specialized experts. There is a gap between science and clinical experience, and we don't have one single goal in research and science and clinical studies and therapy. And also we accumulate information in each sector, and this vast amount of information. But these problems can be tackled. An important solution is that we need to apply interdisciplinary approach, and this is the right way to go. This interdisciplinary approach, and we need to study new methods of therapy, and we need to have an interdisciplinary strategy, and we need AI to put all the facts in system. We have billions of facts, a lot of scientific articles, and it needs to include not just the innovations, most recent innovations, but fundamental classical works of physiologists, starting from Sechenov, Pavlov, Lurie, and others. Our Russian domestic school of fundamental science is really powerful. I'm reading a lot by myself, and I'm astonished at the legacy of the Russian scientists that we have in our country. And problem number 2 is the important specificity is priority of the clinical study results. And consciously, we can extrapolate the experimental data mostly obtained on small rodents to the processes that are happening in the human body. But all preclinical studies are happening using rodents. And some of the things cannot be reproduced with the rodents, even the higher mammals. And for humans, it's much more complicated. We need to develop universal and accurate medical examination approaches, and AI is also needed to us. And to tackle these tasks, we need to engage AI, and we can unite and merge interdisciplinary knowledge and bring medical studies to the whole new level. And the human brain is one of the study subjects in medicine and overall, but unlike the eye is more convenient to study because it's on the outer perimeter of our body.
And the scientific research was done using the artificial intelligence, and therefore this will determine the development trend in many spheres of medicine and medical science in the future. And another problem, which is also resolvable, is that currently practically all the leading universities, all leading institutions that are doing the research on the pathology of the retina are monodisciplinary. And the most interesting thing is that this problem is coming from its sources, from its origin, when the major interest was about neurology. I think that in our country, the problem of learning the neurophysiology issues were developing fantastically, but retina were never studied. So still, it was like a multidisciplinary part of something multidisciplinary, where the various surgery issues were studied. And thanks to organizers of this conference, and thanks to the So the first step was already done, and the next towards the future. And I would like to join to the words of the previous speakers. We could, for example, create a working group for bringing together the specialists of various disciplines and create a universal methodology and upgrading the obsolete terms and concepts. Thanks a lot. This is really sounds like a cosmos, like outer space. You said like 40% of the different communication links are due to the vision, and 20% are exactly for the vision. And what is the other 20% responsible for? Well, this is just only, there are some only proposals, suggestions. I think that here it's quite clear that, and this is a well-known fact, that some of the neural fibers that come from the eye, they go to hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus is a structure of a brain that could be compared to what? To a computer, maybe, that regulates and moderates all the functions in our organism inside. So therefore, it's quite clear that without the vision, many functions and adaptation of the person to the environment, and this is one of the most important components of our intelligence, survival, and evolution, would not be possible without vision. Another thing is that it's not known what kind of fibers and what kind of nerves are responsible for what functions exactly, and it's not known actually what structures that are higher than hypothalamus, these different, just the core of the brain. Now, their interaction of the processes and the interaction with the visual function are very vague, and I think that there is going to be Mr. Latanov who is going to speak on this topic a little bit, and maybe he will be able to discuss this problem in a more deeper. Now, can you tell me about what technologies are you talking about when you speak about artificial intelligence? I mean, in addition to neural network technology. When I speak about technologies, I usually speak about them as a doctor and a surgeon. We use them, and this means the latest generation medical equipment that enable us to do a test or examination non-invasively. When we look at the anatomy of the retina, the functions, the dynamics of those functions, and interaction between activities of these processes and the processes that happen in the brain, etc. Thank you. Thanks a lot to you. I'd like to say it this way. There are various approaches to artificial intelligence. You can do the intellectual analysis of the data, which is very interesting maybe for the scientific research and for practice partially. But there is another thing, is a system of support of intellectual decisions. Now, neuro-ophthalmology, neurophysiology, diagnostics of these very complex ailments or illnesses which are related to the lesion in the eye. Where do you think is the most optimal one and the most breakthrough lines for application of the artificial intelligence or the approach of artificial intelligence in your sector? Where do you think artificial intelligence is the most applicable in your sector? Well, actually, this is a very wide area for discussion. There is no limits to that. I mean, in approach with application of artificial intelligence, what we can propose to our groups right away, for example, right tomorrow, for the change of the fundamental problems and approach to the diagnostics of the treatment of the state of a retina, I can see a very clear and practical solution in when it's done in a coupled, maybe retina and endocrinology. It may sound strange, but I'd focus on that. Maybe I'm just asking too narrowly. Would you like to get a wider answer? No, I mean where the most promising could be the application of artificial intelligence in your sphere specifically. Well, our sphere is absolutely does not exist without artificial intelligence. If you speak about the equipment that we use for diagnostics, for example, for interpretation and processing of data, ophthalmology is probably even was among the first ones in medicine that started using these. Well, if it's a step into the future. Well, if we look into the future, maybe the future is one of the most technological ones, technology intensive. What's next? Next, we partially discussed this problem. You know, I think that, I hope that the development of civilization will follow a path which will lead us to the fact that the technology for treatment will be not needed someday, because the major task is for the healthcare, especially when we speak about some severe illnesses, is to prevent. And here what I see is in the future we should probably focus on what could be applied, what could be done with the help of neural network. Maybe we can come to some conclusion when we could change the whole paradigm towards the element of a human, and that would mean prevention of the states that result in such heavy illnesses. And I'm not speaking only about retina, I mean just any illnesses of a human, but this is like for a real step into the far future, like prevention of illnesses rather than treating illnesses. Yeah, prevention of illnesses, not to treat them, but to prevent them, to do in a way so that there is no illnesses at all. That is to say, to use preventive measures in order to avoid illnesses. That's a very interesting approach. Alexander Vasilievich, are you going to speak where? From the armchair or from the tribune? Okay, can you tell us also a little bit about the new methods? Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your presentation. It was extremely interesting. You know, just I couldn't help but just only listening and watching to you. It was so interesting. Well, I'll wait for the presentation, but before, I'd like to say a few words. Well, actually, before the invitation to this event, to this meeting, I never thought about that in our work, the artificial intelligence would be able to be used and it would be required. Actually, this artificial intelligence came into our life and so it came up just in the form of some mathematical approach that we use for processing our data. Well, my presentation is going to be a little fragmentary, and because I have various thoughts and in the format of our meeting, it would be very difficult to elaborate on these thoughts too deeply, but nonetheless, I'm going to express my opinion. Here on this slide, you can see a picture of a human who is facing an avatar, probably not an avatar, but some kind of a copy of a human. So this is what we usually perceive the artificial intelligence like when the artificial intelligence will have a human appearance. But this is just only, this image is only close for artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, it looks differently. We do not see it, we cannot hear it, but nonetheless, this is what is the picture of the artificial intelligence typically. I'll start with the following thing. Last year, there was a new idea generated by our academicians. One of them is Mr. Anokin, and the other is Mr. Sokolov. So these are two famous people. One of them is a dean, and the other is a director of the institute. So Anokin is a very prominent neurophysiologist, and they proposed to our faculty, in particular to our chair, to become part of this school. And here you can see some of the characteristics of our school, such as the mission of this school, such as resolution of fundamental problems related to the revelation of the nature of cognitive systems and creation of the systems of artificial intelligence, which are targeted at good purposes. So, but the strategic strategic target is to provide educational activities and scientific research activities, which is training of experts and specialists. So we have a very good modern target for our school, and within this school that we have, we were proposed organizing a master's degree. This was absolutely master's curriculum. This was absolutely something new, and we were trying to use the brain of our students and their knowledge about how brain behaves as the basis for artificial intelligence. And in this case, we are mostly working with the mathematics, with mathematics, because mathematics is also interested in physiology of the brain. It means that we started using neural networks to process data, which is very helpful not only for the students but for scientists. And this is an interdisciplinary school. So in addition to mathematics and cybernetics, there are a few other departments that I didn't mention, such as the faculty of psychology. There are linguists, economists, lawyers, and also there is a philosophy department, philosophy faculty. And these faculties, these departments of the university, they all say that this problem have a few aspects. In fact, they have many aspects, and all of these faculties are trying to define what is artificial intelligence and why do we need it. But I would like to speak about what I am focusing on. So here you can see two images. On the right side is the development of the human brain while he's in the tummy of his mother. So. And on the right, you can see the brain that we obtained through the evolution. So what is on the right is the human passing in his mother's tummy. On the right, what we have among the animals. And this is very conservative in the animal world, and the human is still carrying what they obtained through the animals in his brain. So why do we need it? Just because we have very complex behavior, we are intelligent, we have a capacity to learn, but we have all those behavioral forms which are primitive and simple that were peculiar to all our ancestors, including even those one-cell creatures. And here the idea is that our behavior is very complex. It consists of various levels of the development in behavior. And so I'm referring here to Charles Darwin. Here he drew a very simple drawing, and he said that in our behavior, there are a lot of aspects that are related to instincts. During our life, we study, which we are trained to do a lot of things. Not only us, but also animals get trained. And besides, just people are primates. It means so they are. But they are intelligent, and here we deal with intelligent behavior, and intelligent behavior that was not acquired by apes, but in any case, it is believed that human were originated from apes, but apes are just a little bit less intelligent than human. This is the idea of Charles Darwin. So here are the different types of trainings. These are the classical conditional reflexes and different instrumented reflexes. It means that the animal observes some kind of movement and the reflex is triggered. But this is usually a response to all kinds of motivation, and this behavior could be adapted. And the shortest one definition of what a behavior is, this is just only a method of adaptation. This is one of the fastest adaptation to environment. So the cognitive behavior, so above all, we have the research of the cognitive behavior, because cognitive behavior is observed, we can observe something new in the cognitive behavior. What before in the arsenal of the behavior mechanism was never observed. So these are new approaches that are developed within the framework of cognitive psychology by using the hierarchy animals, that is to say, explaining why this behavior was acquired by human during the evolution. Now, a few examples. Even if you take, for example, animals, birds are able to resolve tasks that are very hard, which are not accessible for children of 3 or 4 years old. If, for example, a crow can get food out of this cylinder, and the crow can drop, just stones into the glass, and then it gets water. But not animals, not all crows can resolve this problem, but some of them can. In the middle, you can see a panel, you can see a cage with a bird, with a crow, which is able to see where the cup has a worm, and they're covered with various, they have, the paper square, and then we ask a crow to choose the black or white glass, but the crow chooses learns how to choose the correct glass very fast by looking at a worm. But what's important is that the crow can even resolve the problems of equations. So you can see there on the picture there is a V and S equations, and a crow, although through several days, is able to learn how to select between a V or S. If V, then it has to choose the left one and the left cup, and if it is similar, we use the word S, it means similar, then it chooses the right one. So in this case, we have decided to verify the capability of an animal to resolve this task. And we believe that, of course, apes or monkeys are able to do it even earlier than crows, much faster. But in any case, this capability is acquired by human children not so fast. It takes 3 or 4 years for humans. And there are just this type of experiments with birds and with higher animals, etc. Can you tell me, this is absolutely interesting, but how can this be applied to artificial intelligence? Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. Now, next is we're going to make a comparison. Of course, we work with artificial intelligence. We're trying to compare it, the artificial intelligence and natural intelligence. The natural intelligence is formed by a person's life, and during his life, a person is passing through the different stages of cognitive activities. So here it is important to accumulate the information, including the biological and social information, and based on this baggage of knowledge, a person has new functions of brain who makes that person a person, such as, for example, thinking, logic, cognition, and these constitute the higher forms of the brain activity. And so we also have speech, for example, but speech is also related to thinking, logic, cognitive functions, etc. So from our perspective, scientific perspective, towards the intelligence, in order to see the essence of the intelligence, because we didn't study the intelligence through the brain of a human or through the brain of animals. I mean, some phylogenetic prerequisites or evolutional prerequisite of humans. But what can we say about the artificial intelligence? I think that the human probably is not able to create a perfect something more perfect than the human is. So I think that artificial intelligence that we're creating, this is not real intelligence. Of course, it is based on a different basis, on a different technology. It's based on computer technologies. Computers are not a brain. It's got a different device. But these technology are targeted at using the principles that are used in the brain of humans. So artificial intelligence is based more or less like in the nature. if you look at the central nervous system of a human. Of course, there are some distinctions, differences between the natural intelligence and the artificial intelligence. So here we should focus on the informational distinctions, how the information is passed in the brain of a human. In the brain of a human, it includes analogous signals and digital analogous. Well, analogous, everybody knows, it's receptors that work like analogous devices. Synaptic potentials, when two cells are interlinked, it doesn't mean that they pass 1 or 0. No, it's not like that. Those signals, they vary in amplitude, and then an amplitude goes to just a certain threshold, and then there is a digital signal. A digital signal is a triggering of 0 or 1, and this is an impulse that is passed to another cell which activates it, and then it is repeated. Well, the natural automation, that is to say, the brain is using the so-called parallel principle, parallel processes. And artificial, mostly it goes in sequential one, of course, but just a new modern electronic devices, they also provide parallel processing of the information. But there are some physiological distinctions. They are very evident or apparent. Well, the artificial intelligence does not have what a human has, and this is about recognition of the demands of various levels, because there are some biological needs or non-biological needs. There are different motivations and emotions that define the vector of behavior. And brain of a human, it includes very systemic formations which ensure the support of functional states, motivations or emotions, whether we have good mood or bad mood, whether we feel fresh or not. But motivations are always necessary, because those are the states of the brain which serve as a prerequisite for various needs. Perception. Perception is also something the artificial intelligence learning, but this means integration of external impacts, because any biological system is mostly reacting to what is happening externally, and this means an agitation of the neural system, and so there is an assessment of the external environment, and so integration with the external impact, because we need oxygen, and when there is this integration, then the organism makes a decision on what to do, and then there is an executive mechanisms, that is to say, when the processes are implemented based on what is happening outside. So now the question is whether artificial intelligence needs to be loaded with what a human has. I don't know. This is a subject to discussion. I cannot tell my opinion exactly. So here is an example. What can an artificial intelligence do? How is a task for artificial intelligence posed for an artificial intelligence? So there are three components: given, find, and criteria. So these are the three questions, can be answered by some softwares. And I'm not going to talk about some specific tasks, but what's important is that these questions that you can see in here, these are the questions set by humans. Can artificial intelligence replace a human? That's a big question. But some people notice that even among mathematicians, when they define the artificial intelligence, and they say without any irony, without any sarcasm, that this is just only an imitation of intelligence. So when they say imitation, they do not mean any criticism. Imitation of what? It's because a human is making a tool that a human cannot do, such as, for example, very high speed and processing huge arrays of information. But this is written by people, and artificial intelligence can also make errors like human, because artificial intelligence cannot just take into account all root causes. But who is going to be to blame if, for example, a nuclear power plant stops? Currently, according to our legal system, it's still not artificial intelligence who is to blame. It's a human who is to blame, and there is a problem with artificial intelligence. And if something stops in there, or if something explodes in there, then, you know, in these black boxes of artificial intelligence.
Всяко бывает. Ну, не будем сейчас о плохом, как говорится. И вот на что, так сказать, я хочу обратить
So,
ваше внимание.
what I would like to draw your attention to, this sounds like from a different topic. Noam Chomsky, he's a linguist, and he is one of the highest authorities in the scientific circles of the 20th century. He made a revolution in the understanding of what a language is. And one of his prominent ideas, I'm just making a very short retelling, he said that the language is a structure of the world. And he said that by changing the language, we are changing the world. And I put it into quotes, because this is his quote, and I like it a lot. Well, he made some statements in the universal grammar. He stated that the grammatical principles that are the basis of all the languages of the world are innate and are changeable, and various details could be explained only through the terms of some parametric settings, which could be compared to switches, for example. Why do they have this opinion? Because all people who are born on this globe, just regardless of the race or regardless of the ethnic origin, they are able to learn any language if they are put in the environment. But we must not forget that in addition to language, there are many different things. There is, for example, morality, there is ethics, there is various opinions on the world structure. And if you speak about the problem of digital intelligence, can you make a digital mind based on some innate grammatical principles? Is it possible, if a language is, for example, built in a structure that, if the language defines the structure of the world, but if this is given to the artificial intelligence, do they need some switches? How are we going to agree on that? And so therefore, when we have this meeting, we said that we would like to deal with that, because people have the right in any country, in any community. So there are some principles that organize society, and if each community make their own artificial intelligence, so how are we going to live by that? I'm not trying to diminish the meaning of the artificial intelligence, but this goes kind of beyond informational technologies and biology, and so that's what I wanted to tell you about. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. You just set up, you posed very philosophical and interesting questions. I liked the idea that a human would never be able to create something that is more perfect than the human himself is. Well, people may, for example, object because artificial intelligence can have a better recognition, in particular from recognize a face. But this is an advantage which is quantity-based rather than quality-based. And programming is just a trade, but the science is mathematics. So the trade is using mathematics. We spoke about, just eye, for example. Eye is actually part of the brain. It's brain, and I can prove it. Svetlana did not say that, but 126 million receptors or cells that do work only on vision, and only 6 or 7 receptors are the and everything else are little sticks. So why do we need sticks in order to because to discern between day or night? Everything else are cones. So we have retinal cones and we have retinal sticks. We have only 5 or 6 cones which ensure the vision, and all these sticks are only determining whether it's day or night. And thank God that there are some problems with, just making artificial intelligence better than humans. But in any case, we are creating artificial intelligence, and if we just put it in the principle of making them as good as humans, do we need that type of artificial intelligence? If the artificial intelligence is going to develop like humans, then probably we will no longer be needed for the artificial intelligence. Well, it's just like a Hollywood movie. There was a Terminator, so we have already seen what are the consequences if artificial intelligence becomes like humans. Now, what do you think, Boris Arkadьевич? Will a human create something which is better, which is more perfect than a person is? Will a human create something more perfect than a human is, like artificial intelligence? Please speak into the microphone. In my report, in my presentation, I wanted to finish with that, but I thought that we wouldn't have enough time, and I shortened this my presentation. You know, if we think about what scientists we have, such as Newton or Einstein, or in the genetics of it was Vavilov. In medicine, it's Mr. Botkin, who could diagnose a person right away by just looking at a patient. And maybe this is a question to your presentation. There are some points, some aspects that we are not able to, and we will never be able to do, such as creation an absolutely new something that never existed. Like there was the physics of Newton, then there was the physics of Einstein. It did not grow from Newton's physics. It was absolutely revolutionary. So these type of things, even for the far future, are difficult to imagine. Another thing that I would like to say, even if we talk about sometimes, even if we say that we're going to create a mind, or an artificial mind or intelligence that is going to be better than the human intelligence, then the question is, robots after some time, will they need the humans? Or will it try to get rid of humans if he's going to be more intelligent than us? If you look at the Terminator 2, then they're going to try to get rid of us, of course. I'll talk about mine. Well, the systems that are that have quite big period for the support of the decisions of humans and for the support of our opportunities, our knowledge, our solutions, decisions, they are all they're all about providing some kind of a solution in the most convenient form. I mean, in terms of the interface, like a very good, friendly interface. And on the other hand, so it's not about friendly interface. It's mostly about friendly systems. In this case, friendly intelligence systems. When we speak about, I wrote here hot steps, and when I said hot steps, I thought about exactly that. In order to step on another, staircase, on another step, which is friendly, artificial intelligence. I don't like when people say there is a strong artificial intelligence or weak artificial intelligence. There is a lot of speculations behind that today. Because when we say weak about artificial intelligence, this is mostly said about something that is not in artificial intelligence at all. That's just like, logical problem solvers. So they call it weak artificial intelligence. But these logical solvers were always used in various technologies, and there is nothing to do with artificial intelligence in there. So for us to step up to another level, we have to pass through a certain staircase. And these steps of the staircase, these are the stages that I imagine should be considered. And we should work on, or if these some of these stages are inexistent, maybe we should create them. If they exist, then we need to continue developing them. So the first hot step that I would like to focus on, and this is the most important one in many respects, because if the knowledge in the system of artificial intelligence, you know, the system of artificial intelligence is in fact a system which is based on knowledge. If we're not speaking about the technologies of the artificial intelligence, such as deep learning, machine learning, so there it's a very effective supercomputational systems. These systems, they don't have what should be treated as a transition from the computational systems to intelligence systems. There is no knowledge, because processing, not exactly data, but the processing of knowledge. And in this case, it is important to consider two things. On the other hand, whether this knowledge is full-fledged, on the other hand, what qualities this knowledge is described by. How this knowledge is received? Do we just create a special expert system, or do we create a system in which there is some kind of a processing, but in any case it requires some additional knowledge at the origin? In any case, there is always some subjectivity, and the subjectivity, you know, governs the world. We're all subjective. Why? Because everybody has got their own subjective perception of the world, and subjectivity is a normal characteristics of a human. So there is a subjectivity and some convictions, and there are some doubts. We may have more doubts or less doubts, and this is very good that people have doubts, because this makes people to think whether they act well or not, whether the decision is good or bad, and because otherwise, if it goes too far, then a person will not be able to get to make a decision. And out of this, we come to the word intelligent, but I don't like this word, but it's been used for decades. And besides, there is an intuition. A person has an intuition. Experts have intuition. You know, intuition is often helps to make a fast decision. I'll go back to that a little bit later. You know, this is the knowledge that comes from a human being. We do a lot of work on processing of the natural language. The whole world is working on that, on processing natural language. And they say about big achievements. They do exist, these achievements. But the knowledge from texts, they do not consider the specifics very often. There is a medical, for example, specifics. This is what I'm speaking, and this relates not only to medicine, although I'm just mostly citing medical examples. But in any case, in any sphere, there is some specifics. And in medicine, for example, the specifics in medicine, it results in the fact that we receive sometimes absolutely random interpretation of a text that was processed by artificial intelligence. Because, for example, everybody knows what is a hypertonic illness, and in the medical records, doctor usually doesn't write the whole phrase. They write hypertension or hypertonia without the degrees. They don't. They write, for example, first dig, meaning first degree. We can write first dig, second dig. They know that the first dig and the second, if they write, for example, first dig, second ST, so doctor knows what it means, but sometimes artificial intelligence cannot see. If, for example, a patient has got the first degree hypertonia with other ailments, then the risk of insult, the risk of the heart attack is one. If there is a different degree, then the risk of heart attack is different. Or maybe they could be the same. So the specifics of exactly the texts that the artificial intelligence is working with is very important, whether it's oncology or technical sphere, etc. And besides, the first system that was created, system, it was more about medicine. We call it. There were some factors of confidence of the experts, the measures of trust to the described fits. This was a very good discovery, and we still are using these confidence factors. But still, now it's becoming clear that a sign may have various aspects. A health sign may have, for example, can have a period while it's active. It could have a different degree of expression, manifestation. It could be relevant or less relevant depending on the stage of the illness. Everything can change. Relevance could also change in the medicine and everywhere else. So just a few years ago, I wrote an article which is called the 3 Factors of Confidence, and I still receive feedback from our foreign colleagues. They say that this is very interesting to look at that more closely. We need a multi-aspect assessment of various signs. We should look at the various factors of confidence, and their integration is a quite difficult process, and we are working on this type of system. Intelligent analysis of data that people are speaking about a lot. They use data sets. The data sets are wonderful, but when they say, for example, we took a data set for a large period, in what sphere, we have to understand whether the data for a big period are comparable or not, or maybe some classifications were changing, classification of illnesses were changing, maybe assessments of the significance of various signs were changing, maybe there were some new signs that appeared due to new equipment, and whether the records were full and high quality. And so what do we have? We have a data set which has no quality at all. It is processed, they get some kind of result, and they're trying to analyze these results. So all of these things, it's about knowledge of the data and knowledge. So this is the knowledge that we get from the data, from the data set data. So whether the knowledge is full-fledged and whether the knowledge is complete. So we have to take into account these aspects. So we usually take them into account separately, such as reflection, intuition, and things like that. It's very difficult to inculcate all these things, but all of these things are necessary, and they should be considered. Another point, this is cognitive images. This is exactly what is very typical for the medicine to a larger extent. A doctor, sometimes by looking at an ill person, he can immediately think about a diagnosis or about the state of a person, state of the severity of the illness, like there is, for example, a mask of Hippocrates when a person is in a state when he has to be brought to the intensive care unit. So this, the image may create in a doctor, for example, an insight. It means that this is something that has broken there. There's something that broke out in the doctor's brain through what he saw and did before, and this is indirectly related to the sequence of signs that he observes, or maybe does not observe but see immediately. So what in some cases this is related to the fact that not only a person has got, just external appearance that looks like an ill person's, but also to some kind of metaphorical image. So the people who you see below, these are the children who have a diagnosis of what is called orphan illness. Incubus corridoris type 1, but before it was called gargayelism, because on the left, the first one which you can see, it's from the temple of Notre Dame. This is Gargulia or Gargai. depending on how you pronounce it in a French way or something else. So these type of faces were considered like Gargite type of faces or rough type of faces. So when they say Gargite type of face, so they immediately think about some certain type of disease. So there was a choroidosis of the first or second type, etc. But in any case, this is very important. We still cannot, we're not able to so far to use through our systems, and for this purpose we have a new term which is even doesn't depend on me or engineering of the so-called imaging series. And then there was imaging series. Imaging series, what you can see below. So this is a series of pictures. One of the typical picture is provided like just to explain, and then there is elements of these not very clear images because during the illness and with the development these images may differ, may become different, and so it all depends on the trust of the expert to what he sees, and then we will be able to see if how close the patient is to his diagnosis, to this diagnosis. And we're trying to make a system. This is going to be a logical network of artificial intelligence. So this intelligence system is going to be provided with different hypotheses and the image series. For example, a doctor can look at it and say, yes, exactly, it works. Or maybe they will say, no, we're not going to use this hypothesis because we are going to move faster and providing other types of hypotheses. So this is going to be provided to doctors. Thanks a lot for this deep analysis. But finally, will we be able to climb these hot steps? You spoke about the path of the hot steps. Well, the path is very difficult. I'll try to move on faster. The third hot step, this is explainability, because the first systems, they had some explanations. Today we speak about explainable artificial intelligence. Actually, explainable, it means machine learning, deep learning. And when we speak about transparency of these systems, we actually mean that there are different weights at different levels, different layers, and we can estimate how they change. But these weights don't say anything to a human in this case, to the user. And so therefore, this quantity type of assessment does not create understandable form for a human. Next is validation of this system. If there is no good validation of the artificial intelligence system, and somebody has already spoken about that, if we don't validate artificial intelligence system, then they are never going to be used correctly. On the one hand, we also need to do what is called value-based engineering. We also have to consider the risks with the purpose of prevention, especially in critical applications, not only in medicine, but also in other spheres, including medicine. And we need to conduct a comprehensive verification of the effectiveness of various data sets, not only the data sets that are used in the system, because there usually results are exaggerated, and then they are not satisfactory because they are not verified. That's it. Step-by-step assisting in making decisions. Now, all our systems are mostly implemented through one or two stages of decision making. If we speak about training and diagnostic processes of technological processes, then we have an autonomous system for various processes and stages. And the transition from one system to another system, it's a whole problematic for the users. So therefore, we need to provide assistance in decision making at different stages, and sequential number of systems or maybe subsystems within one system which resolve all tasks simultaneously, from the analysis of data to forecasting and re-forecasting of the situation. The sixth hot step, this is convergence, integration, and hybrid systems. Systems are built on using various methods. We sometimes are not able to unite, to join them, to converge them, whether it's a partial union or a full union, and then create a hybrid systems that should include some logical approaches which are based on verbal data of the linguistics, and then we should include some. Maybe it should be a logical lingual image paradigm, but currently we're in the paradigm of logical and lingual paradigm. So then afterwards we will include the technologies of machine learning and deep learning and all the computational technologies that will be to various extent taken into account. In this way we will receive some kind of a combination of visual images of the original and transformed data. And then the last seventh step, this is the challenge of the epoch and in the medicine, and not only in the medicine. This is autonomous systems for the support of decisions. We need to, just to use the systems which are deeply submerged into the medical informational systems, because otherwise, they're not going to be used. For this system to be working, we need to have a search for structured information and unstructured information, because most of the information will still be provided in electronic text files. And the system with this hypothesis should be looking for this type of information. And if the solution is not satisfactory, then it should switch to a dialogue with the doctor in order to receive some additional data. And afterwards, this additional data should be provided back to the electronic medical system. So this is a huge problem. Currently, it's not very easily resolvable. And this way, artificial intelligence in the future of the digital healthcare, it will be a transition to a personalized remote medicine. We speak a lot about it, but in personalized medicine, so it is mostly based on identification not only of genetic risks, but also on the environment, without which the implementation of the remote medicine is not able to happen. If it's not a medically determined illness, then it's not a risk. And besides, it's a forecasting of the security and effectiveness of a drug for the patient and during the creation of new drugs, multi-level support for the clinical decisions, forecast of the spread and development of epidemics, especially considering the current climate conditions. We see that what's happening with COVID, and this data very often stall people in their decision making. And the artificial intelligence should be provided also at all levels of provision of the at least medical care. And I hope that the experience of Russian specialists who were always among the top scientists in artificial intelligence, it would enable the Russian scientists to resolve these tasks and move forward in resolving the problems that we identify for artificial intelligence in digital environment. So are you optimistic? You believe that all these 7 steps will be able to pass? Are you optimistic that we will be able to pass all these 7 steps that you have mentioned? I'm absolutely sure that we will be able to go over these 7 steps, but we must not forget about them. We must remember about these 7 steps, and we should try to move on as far as possible and implement various solutions and speak to each other about their integration. Thanks a lot. Now, dear colleagues, I'd like to thank you once again for this very intensive and fruitful discussion. In the very beginning, before we started our panel discussion, I spoke with Nikolai Vasilievich, and when we talk about the technological future, about technological leadership, so this is a philosophical question that we touched upon. So I'm asking, are we not already living in this technological future? Isn't today this future already? And maybe tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, when we move on forward, just without forgetting of how we are living today with modern technology, with modern intelligence, and in the future resolve these tasks that we have set up for us. Once again, thank you for your expert opinions, expert assessments, and I think that for our viewers and spectators it was very helpful and interesting to listen to. Thanks a lot to you.